I don't believe what I just saw.
This is one of the great moments in the history of baseball.
You believe in miracles? Yes!
Is this the dagger?
Alrighty, folks, here we are again. Episode number 4 of This Day in Sports. And today, ho, 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 we are focusing on December 25th. Hey! Festive. Hi, everybody. I'm Mike Shera.
I'm Matt Kippen.
And I'm Sandy Jobin Bevins.
Welcome to another episode. We're going to talk about some events that happened on December 25th in sports over the years. Then we're going to talk about some birthdays. We'll have some sponsors, and we're going to do a draft as well and have a special guest. So buckle up for some good times. Sandy, do you have one you want to go with first?
Christmas, December 25th. Well, heck, let's go to 1956. Gordie Howe set a personal record with 6 points in a game, 3 goals and 3 assists, and an 8-1 Red Wings blowout win versus Rangers in Detroit's Olympia Arena. Wow, if you're old enough to remember Olympia Arena or being in Olympia Arena, you're old. Pretty noteworthy is that it's the most Gordie Howe ever had in the game. If that was it, hold on a second. Pretty noteworthy is if that's the most Gordie Howe ever had in the game. Unofficially, we'll edit that out later. Unofficially, he also recorded at least 13 elbow shots New York players in the game. This is bullshit. This is all just your
Yeah,
jokes.
you need to read it before you actually start the show. Is the key. If you actually consult the
Welcome
research.
to This Day in Sports, December 25th. I'm Sandy Jobin Bevins here with
Matt Kippen.
and
I'm not helping you.
you know what? Fuck Gordie Howe.
I was just going to say, you're going to start every episode with a Gordie Howe story too?
Well, whatever. He did a great thing. Christmas 56.
You know, do you know who okay, are you going
Am I done?
Are you done with this?
Through that, yeah.
So
Merry
the thing
Christmas,
is,
everybody. Sandy hasn't read the research.
Sandy ruined Christmas again.
Oh, damn it.
We're 3 minutes in.
Wow. So preparation. No, Gordie Howe, I think it was a personal record with 6 points in a game.
Thank you.
And that what was noteworthy is that's the most he ever had in a game. He also had a penalty in that game, but it was for hooking.
Yeah. Looking for the Gordie Howe hat trick.
Yeah, not a record in penalties.
No, you know who the 2 goalies were in this game.
I bet you do.
I do. They're both.
Sawchuk?
Nope, but 2 future Hall of Famers.
Glenn Hall.
Glenn Hall was one.
Yep.
And the other was Gump Worsley.
Gump Worsley. Oh, well. Got 1 for 2. All right.
Kippen, you got one?
Yeah, I do. Let me just scroll around here. How about recently in 2020, New Orleans running back Alvin Kamara tied an NFL record, scoring 6 touchdowns in a single game. So this was against Minnesota in a 52-33 win. They were all rushing TDs, which I find interesting. And Taysom Hill also ran one in, so theoretically he could have had 7.
Wow. And that's one of those games where everyone who's in fantasy football talks about for the rest of their lives.
Because they either had him or were against him.
Yeah. Oh,
I would have won.
6 touchdowns.
And that
against
probably
you.
was playoffs for fantasy football too, for
If
sure,
it's
right?
Christmas,
That might have even been the win.
There's your
the week.
Christmas present.
There's your Christmas
right there.
present.
6 touchdowns for one
More
guy.
likely that person wasn't in. Like they weren't in the playoffs. They were just sitting.
Oh, if only
like,
had been there with Kamara. Yeah. So many ways you can go on that story when you're doing fantasy football, that's for sure.
But that was 2020, December
That's
25th.
just mere years ago, yes. On December 25th, 1984, former Net star Bernard King, now playing for the Knicks, torched his former team, dropping 60 points against New Jersey, the most ever scored on Christmas Day. And by the way, the NBA has been playing games on Christmas Day for like a long time, like 70 years. This is not, people think it's a new TV gimmick. It's been going on for a long time. The Knicks still somehow managed to lose the game 120-114 at MSG. King would also go on to score 55 versus the Nets that same season in another game that the Nets also lost 126-117. King was a Brooklyn native. He went to the University of Tennessee, and I wanted to talk about him a little bit because I think he's one of the more undermentioned and underrated players from the 80s.
Yep.
We spend a lot of time talking about the great players of the 80s, Bird, Magic, Jordan, obviously, Isaiah Thomas. There's a lot of guys that rightly get a lot of chatter. Bernard King was one of the most prolific scorers of his time and one of the great players, and he had a catastrophic, along with Tom Chambers, the other guy nobody ever talks about anymore, but he had a catastrophic knee injury that basically cost him 2 full seasons, like when he was 29 and 30. And he's still and that was before, knee surgeries like it is now. They had to cut him wide open. He missed 2 full years, and he still came back and averaged like over 20 points a game for a number of years, was an all-star after that. The Knicks released him actually after he had the knee surgery, figuring he was going to be done, but he came back and was an all-star for the Bullets over the next 4 years. Like he averaged 22.5 points per game for his career, and most of that he played, or a lot of that he played after that injury. So I just wanted to give Bernard King a little bit of love because I feel like he gets forgotten about in the halcyon days of the NBA in the 80s. He really, if not for that injury, I really think he would be mentioned with those great players, maybe a little more.
And if you get a chance, Heaven is a Playground is a fantastic book about Bernard King and his brother, I believe. They're growing up in the streets, playing basketball, being discovered, obviously, and then going out from there. But Heaven is a Playground is kind of considered one of the best basketball books of all time, if not one of the best sports books.
That's right. In the 1984 playoffs, he averaged against the Pistons 42 points a game for a whole series.
Yeah,
that doesn't happen much.
No,
great
not at all.
player. Great player.
He is a fantastic player. Well, I'm going to jump because we've Matt, where are you going to go? Do you want to go somewhere?
I'll go somewhere. Sure. I'll go to 1971, the longest game ever played in NFL history, and only the second game ever played on Christmas Day. This is 1971, December 25th. Of course, the Dolphins defeat the Chiefs 27-24 in a second overtime period in an AFC playoff game. So the game lasted 82 minutes and 40 seconds. Wow.
Wow. That cut into 60 minutes.
Yeah, so it featured two future Hall of Famer coaches, Don Shula and Hank Stram. Is it Stram?
Yeah, Stram. Hank Stram.
And 11 future Hall of Fame players, including Bob Greasy, Larry Zonka, Len Dawson, Emmett Thomas. It was just, I think, this is the longest game ever played, like continuous game, but the longest game including weather delays. I think that was that Titans-Dolphins game in September 2018. Mm-hmm. They took 7 hours and 8 minutes. Because of weather delays. So if the Dolphins won, if anyone cared anymore.
Yeah, right.
But again, this is 1971, the longest game ever played in NFL history.
And with all those Hall of Fame players that you mentioned, there was so many of them. The guy who had the unbelievable game in that game was Ed Podolak, who had 110 receiving yards, 85 rushing yards, and 154 kick return yards in the game for the Chiefs. And he was like, who? Ed Podolak. Yeah. But he had the game of his life that day.
Yeah.
And everybody was sitting at home with their fantasy team.
No, that wasn't in anyone's thoughts. Right. But could you imagine?
No, that's right.
What's game of your life?
Game of your life.
Scratch it down, Frank. Game of your life's a great one. Who had a game of their life?
Frank's calling Ed Podolak right now.
I wanted to, Matt, give you a second because I wanted to set this up properly. Christmas 1989, Billy Martin, age 61, dies in an auto accident, basically in his driveway in New York. The official police report said he was the only passenger in the pickup truck, which was driven by his friend and drinking buddy, Bill Reedy, who was later charged with drunk driving. However, Martin's family and many friends, including Mickey Mantle and George Steinbrenner, believe that Martin was driving that night. He was working with the Yankees front office at the time of his death, having served 5 different stints as the manager, winning 1 World Series in 77. Billy Martin, age 61. And it's funny because when I was a kid, you're like, that old guy died, but now you're like 61's not that old. No. I mean, obviously a tumultuous life with Billy Martin. Dying this way, it sadly suits his life.
Yeah.
But you see, the reason I brought this up is because we often talk about things that maybe nobody else gives a shit about. But I recently, now there's a famous incident at the Copacabana in where that's basically where Mickey Mantle and Whitey Ford and Billy Martin and Hank Bauer and maybe a couple other folks in the Yankees were out one night after playing, and at the club got into a fight with a bunch of guys who were like bowling buddies. Like a bunch of bowling team guys came to the Copacabana that night and they got in a fight. And they saw that that was the opportunity for Billy Martin to go because they felt like Billy Martin was such a bad influence on everybody. He was the one out of all those guys who was the bad influence. A bad influence on Mickey Mantle and Whitey Ford, and so they said
he just wasn't as good as Mickey Mantle and Whitey Ford.
He's got to go. Yeah, he's going to go. They're not going to go.
Get rid of him. He's not as good a player.
But what had come out recently was that the reason for that fight. So they said, because it went to court the whole bit because they said that basically Bauer that assaulted this bowler guy who was obnoxious. Apparently, what came out that night recently was Sammy Davis Jr. There was racist remarks happening that night, and the Yankees guys got up and said, "Stop it." That was what put them in the point of like, you guys shut the fuck up, or we're gonna shut the fuck. And that apparently was what it was. They were defending Sammy Davis Jr. And the comments that these asshole bowlers were making that night. So they were taking the higher moral ground, and this is an era of the 50s into the 60s. This is and that was really what was going on with Billy Martin. So that was something that Reggie Jackson always said that he had heard, and that was why Reggie was always, I still respect Billy Martin even when we fight or we don't get along, is because I remember that was part of that story was he was standing up for a black man and not being giving these racist remarks. So that's why I say this story of him driving was an incident that later was maybe something else was happening, and this was also a big deal with him at the Copacabana, which is something people don't talk about anymore.
Interesting too, because those teams. Elston Howard would have been a big part of that team at the time, too, right? Who was the first great
Who also said, I heard the same story.
Oh, is
he
that
even
right?
backed up that story and said, I heard they were standing up for Sammy Davis Jr. So,
that's great.
Yeah.
Really cool story.
Yeah, that not a lot of people know about.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Really neat.
Well, people do give a shit about that one. Good. Okay, thank God.
Well, Frank does anyway.
It would have been weird if you guys were like, I don't give a shit about people standing up for racists, against racists.
That would... Yeah,
maybe would have possibly ended the podcast.
Yeah, perhaps.
Or changed it completely.
Is it me?
Yes, please.
Okay, on December the 25th, 2008, in a rematch of last year's NBA Finals, the Lakers defeated Boston 92-83, ending the defending champion Celtics' 19-game winning streak, and at the same time giving head coach Phil Jackson the 1,000th win of his NBA coaching career. And he remains the fastest head coach to reach the milestone. In other words, he needed the fewest games to reach 1,000 wins. Of course, having Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen and Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant will do that for you. But nevertheless, there you go. That's my little thing nobody gives a shit about. Which I only decided it was after I said it and no one reacted.
After you looked at us.
Mission accomplished.
Clearly, by the stone face on the three of you, I can tell that.
Well, let's see if I can top that with a thing only I care about. So December 25th, 2005. So I find it hard to believe that anyone was doing paperwork on this day, but apparently the Los Angeles Angels, or the Angels, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. They signed Tim Salmon, who hadn't played the previous season due to injury. So the result was Tim Salmon got to play for 3 different incarnations of the Angels. And the reason I bring this up is I wanted to ask you guys if you think you can name all the different proper names of the Angels baseball team.
Oh, wow. Okay, so California Angels.
Can you do it? Wait, can you do it in order?
Oh, okay. I don't know if we can do it in order.
Los Angeles Angels was first.
So that, because we talked about that.
Okay, California Angels second?
Correct.
Okay.
So, Los Angeles Angels from 61 to 64, California Angels from 65 to 96.
What did they change to? Anaheim Angels?
Anaheim Angels is next, 97 to 2004.
Was it the Los Angeles Angels again?
Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim.
That's right. Anaheim. Next is from 2005 to 2015 is the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim.
That's how we got back there.
And then we come full circle back to
Los Angeles Angels.
Los Angeles Angels.
Wow.
2016 to present.
Right.
Yeah. And then they were the Mighty Ducks. They should just, screw it. They're all the Mighty Ducks.
I just couldn't believe I'd forgotten that there was a team called the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim.
So ridiculous.
Yeah,
that's just beyond baseball. That's like we want some money from Anaheim. We want some money from
Anaheim. That's what that translates.
But that's not even a baseball thing. It's just like they wanted money from Anaheim. They wanted money from Los Angeles, so they named them both to get some input and some.
Yeah,
cash.
and you want to have best of both worlds too, right? You want to be in Los Angeles, but you also want to be in Anaheim. Like you're one or the other. Like
So Tim Salmon got to play for 3 of them: California Angels, the Anaheim Angels, and the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim.
That's interesting. I actually do give a shit.
Yeah, no,
all right.
People seem to give more of a shit about that than my thing. So good
definitely, that's for sure.
I can't remember your thing.
Yeah, you've already
Hey, you know what? Let's
Tim
talk.
Salmon finished his career, by the way, 299 home runs.
Oh man. Well, listen, I'm going to talk about a few. This is birthdays now.
Okay.
Oh,
This is a guy who, of course, very famously played for the Angels, Rickey Henderson.
Legendary Angel. Yes.
That was one of his stops.
I know.
1958, Rickey Henderson was born at Christmas Day, 1958. 10-time All-Star, career MLB leader in stolen bases, runs scored, born in Chicago, Illinois, born in the backseat of an Oldsmobile, one of our sponsors of a previous episode, if you want to check that out.
Great people.
That's absolutely right. And that was speeding towards the hospital. He was born in the back of a car that was going to the hospital. So that's speeding.
wait, the car was going to the hospital.
Yeah.
He was born on the way.
Speeding towards the hospital.
Okay.
They infused his speed for the rest of his life. One of the few players in MLB history and easily the greatest to hit right-handed and throw left-handed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little quirk.
I always forget
yeah.
that he threw
I
left-handed.
know. It was always weird. When you'd see him out there, you'd be like, why does it look weird?
Yeah.
Like, oh, right. Because he's doing it differently than he does when he's at the plate.
Yeah, very strange.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very,
it's
very few
strange.
players with that. Ryan Ludwig, another.
Yeah, but easily the only Hall of Fame player who did that. And certainly the greatest player who, switched.
Yeah. Rickey obviously played a long time for a lot of different teams. But as soon as he got on base, and if you were playing against mostly the A's, I'm thinking about, but as soon as he got on base, you were just like, well, he's going to third.
Yeah.
That's a triple.
Remember-
A single's a triple,
That's
or
right.
a walk is a triple.
Yeah. The 89 playoffs, you remember against the Jays? Poor Pat Borders. He might as well have just looked at Pat Borders and said, I'm running.
I'm just going to go
and
there.
you have no chance.
Yeah, don't
I'm
bother.
just why don't you just let me go and save yourself the embarrassment? I felt so bad for Pat Borders. He had no hope. There was no chance. Everybody in the building knew it.
Yeah.
He single-handedly beat the Blue Jays that year by him.
He absolutely did.
Officially, I think he stole 180 bases in that series.
And just that series.
In that series, I think that's the actual number. But he made up for it when he came back to play for the Jays with that one at bat against Mitch Williams. You remember?
Yep.
He basically dared Mitch Williams to throw him a strike.
Yep.
And Mitch Williams did not. You could see him. He literally was like, "Go ahead, dummy.
Couldn't do it.
Give me one down the
Yeah.
middle." And Mitch Williams walked him on 4 straight
Yeah.
balls, and that set up that inning for Joe Carter to hit that home run.
Yeah, it was definitely. I remember when the Jays got him in '93, and I think collectively in Toronto, we're just like, that's exactly the guy.
Yeah.
Because now he can't do it to us.
He had beaten us up for a long
just get
time.
him on our team because he's messing us up. Yeah.
And we needed a player who spoke of themselves in the third person.
Oh, which is so
You know
glorious.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Rickey doesn't do that.
Rickey doesn't. Yeah, exactly. There'll never be another Rickey Henderson.
no.
Let's believe. That's just.
I am
face
the
that.
greatest of all time.
Where are we at here?
I'm going to do a death.
Yep.
In 2020, Dick Allen, 7-time MLB All-Star, 1972 American League MVP, 2-time AL home run champ, passed away. Dick Allen has a career OPS plus of 156, which is really, really high. That means he is 1.56 times better than the average player offensively. He's one of the best hitters not in the Hall of Fame. No less an authority than Willie Mays said that Allen hit the ball harder than any other player he had ever seen. In 2021, he fell 1 vote short of election to the Hall of Fame by the Golden Days Committee. The second time he's just been 1 vote shy. Dick Allen in Philadelphia in the 70s had a rough time. He was a very outspoken black man and very proud black man, and it was a tough time for him to play in that town. I think he was put on the Phillies Wall of Fame just before he passed away, and I think they kind of mended fences a bit, but I think it hurt him in his career.
Yes.
He was improperly labeled as a difficult guy and all that stuff, all those stereotypes that happened to black athletes back then. A great hitter, not just a good hitter, a great hitter. And also was on the cover of Sports Illustrated, I believe, having a cigarette.
He's got a
in the
smoke.
dugout.
He's
So
juggling.
also the coolest guy
He's
ever.
juggling 3 baseballs with a cigarette in his
stogie,
mouth.
that's right, yeah.
And it's
He's
one of the
having a
greatest covers of all time in
It is.
Sports Illustrated.
It is.
And in every baseball fan, it's just like the most tragic thing that he didn't get into the Hall of Fame. It's absolutely crap. It's
one of those
He's
guys
going
that-
to eventually.
Yeah, I'm sure he will. He's one of those guys that all the players who played with him think he should be in. Just he hasn't politically. He didn't get in because it's writers, not players, who vote.
That's absolutely correct. The writers didn't like him, but the players loved him, and you would sure as hell want him on your team.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, let's end on a happy note.
Thank you.
Not end, but let's just say that in 1980, another birthday, Marcus Trufant, former NFL cornerback for Seattle Seahawks, Pro Bowler in 2007.
Nice player.
Yeah.
I believe, too, I did a little research on him. He is a native of Washington State. He went to Washington State University, and he spent his entire career with the Seattle Seahawks. So now there can't be many guys who played in the Pro Bowl who could say they played their whole pro career with a team in their home state, went to high school and college in their home state. There can't be many guys like that. That's the quirky thing about Marcus Trufant. And he also was he just predated that Legion of Boom defense in Seattle, right? He was there right when Sherman and Thomas and Chancellor and those guys first showed up. And they all very much credit him with being kind of a guide for them when they first came into the NFL.
Yeah, he was a mentor for them.
Yeah, that's right. He was a nice player.
Oh, yeah.
On some not great teams, but he was a nice player.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, that Legion of Boom, to a person, basically has said that they don't have that success without him leading the way for those guys.
Smart guy.
I'm going to throw one out there because I want to go back to just a date here. December 25th, 1971, in the final NHL game ever played on Christmas Day, the California Golden Seals defeat the LA Kings at the LA Forum. So the winningest team in NHL history on Christmas Day. Any idea coming out of that? Because that's no longer. I wish the NHL would play on Christmas Day. By the way, it seems like they should.
They used to. It used to be a regular thing. Like
I think the NBA just took over so much that they just feel like it's a lot.
From 1960 to 1967, every team played on Christmas in the NHL.
Yeah, which just seems right. But of course now they dominate with New Year's Day. They have the Winter Classic.
Yeah.
They do also have New Year's. But I want to go back to this. So the California Golden Seals, last ever, but the winningest team in NHL history on Christmas Day. Anyone? The New York Rangers. They were 25-10. They were 25 and 10.
25 on 10.
25 on 10, which is a great.
Was the score of their game.
25 on 10, I believe. Also that's the play they called when the Eagles won the Super Bowl over the Patriots. 25 on 10. 25 on 10. 25-10. I can't say it. 25-10, my favorite radio station.
25-10.
Yeah, they're 25 wins, 10 losses on Santa's big day. So that was the New York Rangers. If you're ever going to win, that's going to be a trivia question. You can win millions of dollars. Remember, the New York Rangers are the winningest NHL team on Christmas Day.
25 on 10 too. So no slouch.
No,
I think they were just lucky. Like I have an example. 1943, the Rangers.
Of course, we all remember this.
They had a Christmas Day miracle. They go to Toronto with a 2-15-1 record, and they beat the Leafs 5-3.
Christmas magic, baby.
Christmas magic.
The Rangers only won 6 games that season. They went 6-39-5. 6 games. 6-39-5.
They managed to win in Toronto on Christmas Day.
I mean, it was wartime, so you know.
You know, in the war.
Wartime.
How that goes.
It was war.
None of us pussies know anything.
This is 1943.
No.
I'm just saying the Rangers
These
look
three
like
guys.
The Rangers were had a little Christmas magic.
I have one December 25th, 1972. So I talked about Bernard King, who I think is one of the underrated players of the 80s. I'm going to talk about one of the most underrated players of the 70s in the NBA, Nate Archibald of the Kansas City / Omaha Kings. No wonder nobody knows about him. He played his home games in 2 different cities, neither of which is exactly a metropolis of, media. Set a Christmas Day record with 18 assists and scored 20 points in a game versus the Bucks, which also Milwaukee won.
Yeah.
So it seems like it doesn't matter that you have a good statistical day. That very season, this is why I want to talk about him. Tiny Archibald, as he was known, became the first and only player to lead the NBA in assists and points in the same season.
Oh,
think about that.
Wow.
Think about all the great point guards who score. There's a lot of them now.
There are 2 different categories.
Yeah, it's 2 really different categories. But James Harden hasn't done that. Steph Curry hasn't done that. Those guys play point guard, distribute the ball. Tiny Archibald is the only guy to ever do that. He's probably the most forgotten player from the 70s. We tend to, admittedly, we don't talk about a lot of players from the 70s like we probably should. And when we do, it generally tends to be guys who won championships. And he didn't, playing for the Kansas City / Omaha Kings. But he won an NBA title in 1981 with the Celtics. And the NBA has been, it comes up here on my screen, the NBA has been playing games on Christmas Day since 1947.
Yeah.
So that record is, there's been a lot of games on that day. 18 assists and 20 points, and yet his Omaha Kings still lost.
I just want to highlight the fact again, the only player to lead the NBA in assists and points in the same season is unbelievable.
It is.
So that is a great.
It's a staggering statistic. Who I could give most people, I think, 25 guesses at who that was that did that, and
chance.
Nobody would get Tiny Archibald.
No chance.
No.
Now, because we're in basketball world, we're talking about all these different things of basketball. We haven't gotten into a ton of college basketball, NCAA men's basketball to be specific.
In the new year, I think we'll probably have more.
We absolutely
college
will.
Basketball picks up then, right?
Getting up into March Madness, we're all fans of March Madness over the years. All these different teams, all the things that. But Matt, specifically, you want to just. I will say, maybe a little less of the NCAA men's. So we're going to have a draft.
Okay.
We're going to draft and make a tad easier. And also for our viewers, I got to say, our listeners and viewers, because this is on YouTube. And so our listeners.
I'll be your everyman.
And you are the everyman.
Every person.
Look at this guy. He's got the Christmas hat on.
Every person.
Thank you. You're the every person. And we want to have a draft, as we always do. And the parameters of this draft are, we want to pick a starting lineup. You're starting 5. So you're going to get all those positions filled. You're going to have your center, your power forward, your small forward, your shooting guard, your point guard. These are NCAA finals stars. Stars of the finals. Like getting down to Final Four.
Final Four.
Final Four, yeah.
Since 2000.
Yeah, since 2000. So we're essentially 21st century.
Yes, sir.
Heroes.
Yeah.
Of the Final Four.
The last 2 games.
Yeah. That's all we're counting. Yeah.
Can I take Matt quickly upstairs and not come back with him?
Beat the living shit out of him.
Well, if we don't have to, I could just lock him in there.
I'm going to go with you.
But we're going to, this is going to be a draft. We're going to pick a starting lineup. We're going to cover all the positions for the 21st century only. And we are going to be judged by a voice
of college
basketball, also a voice of baseball, a legend. And that's going to be, I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to be Dan Schulman.
Yeah.
Dan Schulman's going to join us after this draft to judge us, hopefully severely.
I hope Schulman appreciates that we are awkwardly shifting into this draft with really no previous references to college basketball in this podcast.
Segues are
strictly for him.
Yeah, this is just for Dan.
Yeah,
we're doing this as a favor.
Yeah,
we're having Dan
he owes
Schulman.
us big time.
This guy owes us. Okay,
Yeah.
Dan Schulman is lucky to be on this day in sports.
Right. He rolled a 7 there.
So we're going to get to the draft now, and then we'll have Dan judge afterwards. Now, I believe first pick in this draft is Matt.
Yeah.
Matt, you're going to pick
I'm
first. Yep. So what do you got there, Matt? Who are you going to start with?
All right. I think this is an easy pick for me. You tell me. I'm going to take Carmelo Anthony.
Yeah.
Nice pick.
Kind of, for that 2003 year with Syracuse.
Yep. That's not too bad. He played 37 minutes in both those games. 26.5 points. He pretty much carried that team.
He absolutely did, and you will find a little bit as we go into this too, is that it is rare actually that someone in this pocket of time was a star in the Final Four NCAA, then was a star in the NBA.
Yeah,
a lot of forgotten people, a lot of forgotten names,
there
but that's
really
certainly
are.
one that's still playing. And is a star in both.
And we should clarify that even though Matt made a pick who is of a player who became a star in the NBA for sure, their NBA career, anything they did before or after, is of no criteria in this draft. It is only their performances in the Final Four.
In the Final Four.
That's it.
The last 2 games.
It's not.
Okay. This is, listen.
Wait, we're going to have to pause. Sandy's going to have to take Kiffin upstairs.
I'm going to take him upstairs. Can you just give me like a bag of oranges real quick?
No, now my understanding
I got an old
is
phone book up
my
there.
understanding is I can put him at a couple of positions here. I can put him at small forward or power forward.
You just need 2 forwards. So yeah, sure, that's fine. Yeah.
Well, I'm up next.
Yes, you are.
And I guess I just kind of feel like I want this guy because of this position that is a little bit weaker as far as I saw. Plus, he's became a star in the NBA. The brow, Anthony Davis. I'm taking Anthony Davis.
Sure.
Played for Kentucky, of course, and he's going to be my first pick at power. I'm putting a power forward.
Yeah,
some power forward here.
That's kind of
Yep.
Yeah, he did pretty well in 2012, didn't he?
He did, and I also found that as we go into this draft, I was looking at guys. Power forward might be was the one position I had a little less. I had a little bit of trouble finding the guys I wanted.
6 blocks in that game in the finals against Kansas in 2012.
Yep.
6 blocks. He
Yep.
only had 6 points, but 6 block shots. Like that. No, I'm not trying to diminish
No, I
the
know.
fact
No, exactly. There's a lot of things he could do.
16 rebounds he had too. Like he played a great game.
Yeah.
Okay, I too will. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go to another position, and I'm going to take a guard, and I'm going to take, even though his team did not win the national championship that year, I'm going to take Derrick Rose as my point guard. Because for Memphis, he was out of his mind for those 2 games. He played 45 minutes in the title game, which they lost.
Yep.
18 points, 8 assists, 6 rebounds, 2 steals. He had 25, 9, 4, and 1 in the semifinal. He played 37 minutes. He was unbelievable. He had a great NBA career as well. He's the youngest NBA MVP of all time. But nevertheless, we're only picking him for that. So I want Derrick Rose as my point guard.
The Windy City Assassin. Derrick Rose. One of his many nicknames.
That's
in the
the thing
NBA.
Sandy said. That
I just
no
love
one
that
gives a
name.
shit.
I just love that name. The other nicknames include D Rose, of course, and Pooh. So I'm going to go with the Windy City.
Probably
Assassin.
Windy City's better.
I'm going to follow you up at follow Mike up there at point guard and take Kemba Walker,
Yeah, that's a good choice.
UConn in 2011.
Yeah, he was pretty good too.
And he's another guy. A lot of assists and decent NBA career, of course.
Yeah, really good NBA career.
And because you loved my nickname last time, Kimba Cardiac Walker.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
a good one. I like
Cardiac's
that.
a good one.
Yeah, he's a nice player.
Okay, you guys have grabbed your point guards, so I'm going to move away from point guards, knowing that I can grab one late in the game. And I'm going now. Listen, for those of you out there, I've got it down to 2 guys, but I'll tell you, full confession, I hate Duke. I love North Carolina. Maybe a guy you may not remember. I don't know. Wayne Ellington.
Yeah, I have him on my list.
And I love nicknames, and this one is the man with the golden arm. So let's go with Wayne Ellington, a UNC legend, and I'm going to put him in at shooting guard.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay.
Knocking him down.
Okay, so since we're no one's gone there yet, I'm going to pick my center. And I'm going to take, I'm not as big on UNC as you, but I'm still going to pick a UNC center. I'm going to take Sean May.
Yeah.
Because in 2005, that guy went nuts. He did not have much of an NBA career. I think people thought he might.
Yes.
People thought he
He
would.
definitely would.
He went crazy in that in the semifinals and finals in 05 in St. Louis. He had 22 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, and a block in the semifinals, and he had 26 on 10 of 11 shooting in the final game, along with 10 rebounds, 2 assists, and a block against Illinois. They couldn't stop. You remember Illinois had those 3 guards that could score from anywhere. That Illinois team might be the best NCAA team that never won a championship. They were so good. They had those 3 guards. You couldn't stop any of them.
Yep.
But all North Carolina did in that game was just feed the ball to May, and Illinois had no one to stop him.
No one.
And he won that game by himself.
Yep.
So I'm taking him as my center because that was I remember that game.
I can't argue because I can still remember that game too, and I know how good he was in that Final Four.
Okay.
Absolutely.
To you, Kevin.
All right. It's an easy one for me. I'm going to take Shane Battier.
Yeah.
Ugh, gross. That's disgusting.
Duke, you
That's
don't like it, eh?
My biases are hurting me too because he's a
God.
great. Yeah.
I just hate Shane Battier.
I mean,
Sorry,
he was the
guys.
tournament MVP.
Yes, he was.
I know we're only
And he had a great
judging by the
NBA
last
career.
few
None
None of the things you say is going to make me go, you know what? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay.
If you can go all the way back where he doesn't go to Duke, we got a shot.
And listen, in that 0-1 final,
Yeah.
played 40 minutes in both games. Like, did not sub out. He's amazing.
I watched. I hated him. And
I
it was
know.
just like that's why he's killing my soul
you
because he was
hated
so
him for a
good.
reason, right?
Listen, he's good. There's
He's great.
no chance,
Yeah.
and decent NBA too, and all that. So.
Oh yeah, really good. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can't argue with any of that. Well, this is as you guys know, I like comedy, but I also like tragedy. And so now I'm
As opposed to
well, I'm dipping into the centers, and there's a guy I didn't really like, and then there's a guy who was pretty easy and straight up, but I gotta go to the tragedy of Greg Oden, I'm gonna go Ohio State's Greg Oden because just it didn't work. The whole tragedy of the NBA, but man, in college, no problem at all. So I'm gonna go with him as my center.
Yep. He was really good in that final game against Florida. He was unbelievable.
Yes.
He had trouble in that semifinal. He had some foul trouble against Georgetown, but in that final game, he almost won that game by himself.
He absolutely
Like,
almost
he
won that game
almost
by
stole
himself. and that's. I mean, is it a bad draft pick? Is the NBA like? Are you looking at those guys going? Can you predict that? No, of course you can't.
No, does it hurt that you could have had Kevin Durant? Yes, of course it does now.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
But nobody at the time, nobody was like, "Oh, that's a terrible pick."
He was the pick.
Much in the same way, Sam Bowie, same thing. Like Sam Bowie was a good pick.
Yeah.
His body just failed him.
Yeah, stress fracture there, and
that's right.
Anyway, I'm going with Odin. I'm gonna go with the brighter days of Odin, and that's gonna be my center.
Yes, you are. Okay, for my shooting guard, I'm going to take Dante DiVincenzo from Villanova.
Yeah.
Because, as you all remember, in the 2018 finals, he came off the bench and scored 31 in the final against Michigan, which is the most by any player ever off the bench in a final game.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Most ever. Also had 3 assists, 5 rebounds, a couple of blocks, shot 5 for 7 from 3. And in the semifinal game against Kansas, he had 15, 8, and 3. He was kind of their guy. You could feel as Villanova went further and further in that tournament, he was the guy that was starting to really catch fire for them. You knew he wasn't going to stay on the bench long. He was awesome that year.
And great nicknames.
Yes.
The Big Ragu.
The big, right?
The Big Ragu.
I mean, they got to have some kind of bias, and let's go with nicknames.
I was a little bit leaning towards nicknames and far away from Duke.
Yeah. That's to Matt's advantage because I'm feeling the same way. Matt's going to have an all-Duke team.
I'm going to South Carolina, and this player, I don't believe they won, and he didn't win the MVP either, but it's Sindarius Thornwell.
Oh.
Sindarius Thornwell.
There's a callback.
I love hearing that name.
I think they
thought of that in a
lost.
long
I think
time.
they lost to Gonzaga wait. Let me see here. Wait, did they make it? Let me double check. Did they make it to the last 2 games? I know he had a great tournament.
What year was it? It was
So this is
17?
2017.
Yeah, hang on.
Darius Thornwell, South Carolina.
I think they did. Yeah, they went to the semifinal game and they lost in the semifinal game against Gonzaga. So you're picking him based on one game which his team lost.
Yes.
Wow. That's a wild card.
Now,
but just hearing his name again felt so good, man.
It is. It's kind of worth it for that. Now, in that game, he had 15 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. So it wasn't his best game of all time. He had a good tournament going up to that.
You know what? I'm gonna take him.
Okay.
I think that
stand by your man.
Yeah, I think that the fact that to get there, they beat a number 2 seed Duke team, a number 3 seed Baylor team, and then they beat number 4 seed Florida.
They went crazy that tournament. Yeah.
So I understand this is just the last 2, but
that's fine.
I'm looking at my board, and it's screaming Sindarius Thornwell.
It also gives you chance to say Sindarius. So what could go wrong? It's a fantastic.
He's a Fortnite character. Thank you, Frank. I appreciate that.
I don't have to cross him off my list.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't have to. No, you don't have to. I'm looking at a couple of these guys. I do need a point guard, so I'm gonna have to go point guard. This is my final pick, by the way.
No, you got.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's it for me.
Yep.
You were only picking 4 guys?
No, he's picking 5.
Yeah. You know what?
Oh wait,
my 4 guys.
We only have 3 each.
Oh yeah, I picked first. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have Ellington. Oh, that's right. I haven't. Okay, I forgot. Jeez. You know what? My team's going to be so good. Yeah. Just going 4 guys. No, I got this. Because you know
You're
what?
You're going to play the 5th guy?
You know what? I'll go back to my point guard later. You guys have both got point guards. I'm going to go to my small forward because I tell you what, I love the nicknames. The drunken dribbler, Corey Brewer. Corey Brewer from Florida, going on my team. I have to have the drunken dribbler. Makes a lot of sense since I'm the only one drinking a beer on this podcast. Wow. The drunken dribbler.
You're not.
Is mine.
I have beer.
Okay, under the table. All right. I'm going to come back and get my point guard later, but I'm very happy to get Corey Brewer.
A 2-time champion too, right?
Absolutely.
That counts.
Yeah. And that's rare.
Yes, especially now.
Yeah, absolutely is.
Okay, so I need forwards now. So I'm going to take my first forward is going to be Caron Butler from UConn.
It's a good choice. Very recent.
Crazy. He lost in the semifinals in 2002. But had 32 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, and a steal in that game. He shot 70% from the field. He was a great player on a number of good Connecticut teams. I know they didn't win it all, and he wasn't an MVP, but I'm taking him anyway.
It's a good choice.
Perfect. I round out my team here, though I think Sindarius kind of rounded it out for me. And
that's right.
But the icing on the cake will be my center. I believe he will qualify there. It is Amika Okafor.
Yeah.
That's where I was thinking about going, but Okafor is just a solid choice.
Yeah, he's very
Okafor,
good player.
the championship game, 2004, 24 points, 15 boards.
Yeah, he was crazy good. That was and they beat Duke and Georgia Tech that year. He was awesome. Now you're at your last.
Now I can take it.
Please don't take Pete Peters.
Again, a player who
Was called back.
good, obviously a college career, but also a great NBA career. My point guard is going to be Russell Westbrook from UCLA. Okay. Beastbrook is going to join my team. When I win this draft, look back and even go, he didn't even need Westbrook. He could have had 4 guys. You're going to think that to yourselves.
Is that right?
I'm going to throw him on top. He's going to probably that's going to be a little bit too much for everybody, but I'm sure Schulman's going to see the light.
All right. In spite of the fact that Sandy has already won the draft, I'm going to finish my draft, and I'm going to take Luke Hancock from Louisville in 2013. He had 22 in the final against Michigan with 2 steals, 0. And I'm going to point this out because this is important for my team.
Okay.
In the Final Four in 2013, he played almost the entire game, both games. 0 turnovers total in both games.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say something dramatic like no shoes.
No, he played with no. He played on one leg. No, 0 turnovers in both games in the Final Four.
Yeah.
That's pretty clutch. He got 22 points in the final, 20 in the semifinal against Wichita State. Had a couple of steals, but no turnovers. So that's my team. It's kind of like my plus-minus picks in the other.
That's true. Actually, I was just going to say, you can relate back to the previous
right.
episode.
That's right. It all matters. It matters.
It does
And you know who's going to understand that? Dan Schulman.
Dan Schulman's going to understand that.
Yeah, he's going to know. He's going to be like, you know what? That guy's talking sense.
Yeah.
Sandy's all flashy. Mike's talking sense.
Well, Schulman...
there's 3 of us, Mike.
What's Kippen again?
Listen, Sindarius.
Kippen, this is your last chance to impress.
I think that you're selling Sindarius.
I'm not. It was just because Sandy was talking smack. So
now, Matt, you've got a center. You've got a... What are you looking at? You looking for power forward?
No, we're done. We're done the draft,
Matt,
Sandy.
No, Matt, you're going to need a 6th player because my 4 guys are going to be so good. You're going to go, I need a 6th guy.
You can pick one of Sandy's guys.
So I'm going to... I'm gonna pick a guy for you.
I think my team's going to beat yours, to be honest.
How dare you?
Interesting theory.
Okay. Well, we're gonna find out right now.
Yeah, I mean,
whatever.
Okay. Everyone's so mad. Why?
You're stupid.
So who's the guy that guy? Is that's very controversial? I got a 6th guy for you. Who you got there? Who's your Sidarius? What's that?
Sindarius Thornwell.
I'm gonna give you Darius Rucker. No,
I don't want him. I want my team.
Lead singer of Hootie and the Blowfish, Darius Rucker, is going to be on your team as well.
Wow.
And that guy's going to bring a lot of chemistry to that locker room.
I don't doubt that for a second. Yeah. It's going to be good. It's going to play big.
Listen, you know what? It's time that we got judged.
Yeah.
Because this guy, is going to do a nice job. He's a nice guy. Yeah. But he's probably going to be a little harsh.
We're going to encourage him to not be nice.
But you know what? What's today?
It's Christmas.
So he might be nice to us today.
Yeah.
We'll see.
He'll have mercy.
Absolutely. Because, I don't think he even celebrates Christmas. I don't even know.
We'll find out.
But we're going to find out. Dan Schulman, take it away.
So this is about as close as you get to a needs no introduction guest. He's currently the play-by-play guy for the Toronto Blue Jays, a job he originally worked on back in 95 to 2001. He was calling baseball on ESPN for about, 147 years. And is currently the lead announcer for ESPN's NCAA men's college basketball coverage. He works with another guy, but that guy went to Duke. So as a UNC fan, I dare not utter his name. Dan can do that himself. In 2011, he won the National Sportscaster of the Year by the National Sportscaster and Sports Writers Association, the first Canadian-born announcer to do so. And he won the Canadian Screen Award for Best Sports Play-by-Play at the 2022 Screen Awards. He's a Western alum. Go Mustangs. Please welcome Dan Schulman is here.
Woo! Well, thank you, Sandy. Other than me being at least 147 years old, that's one of the nicest introductions I've ever gotten. So I appreciate that.
I didn't want to be all nice. Because if you're going to trash talk my guys, I'm going to be like regretting being too nice. You see.
Right. Well, we'll wait on that. I don't want to give anything away too early in the podcast. I want to make sure I have 3 friends for at least 15 or 20 minutes here. So.
Totally fair. That's totally fair. Now, Dan, as always, we have a sponsor for our draft and our podcast. And Mike, I believe you have our sponsor read to get started here.
I do. You're going to make me read this in front of him, aren't you? Okay. Well, everyone here at TDIS has been looking to lock up a tech sponsor, and I'm thrilled to finally announce that we have one after a lot of hard work. Today's episode is sponsored by the amazing people at ColecoVision. This Christmas, ColecoVision is the one gift you and your whole family can enjoy together, and they have offered a special promotion for all of our This Day in Sports listeners. If you call the 1-800-COLECO-1 hotline, you get a brand new console system with 2-hand controllers and the new roller controller trackball feature. Perfect for your favorite new games like Centipede, War Games, and Omega Race. Plus Donkey Kong and Pitfall cartridges, all included for just $239.99. And I have been told that they will accept Visa, MasterCharge, or Diners Club cards. So please get on that right away. 1-800-ColecoVision. Back to you, Sandy.
Thank you so much, Mike. That, of course, is the Connecticut leather company, Coleco.
Yes.
That hot new move to technology. Dan, we tasked you with these three teams. We had a draft, and again, the parameters were that these were guys who excelled in the Final Four. So they may have had a great college career, or maybe a short one, done well in the NBA, maybe better than college. Doesn't matter. Final Four. Now, that may influence your mind a little bit if they went on to be great NBA players. It may influence you in any way you want. There's really not a really hard and fast parameter here. The only guy really worried about losing is Matt. So what did you see initially out there, Dan?
Well, I love this. So as I was saying to you guys just before we came on, this was a great exercise for me to remember what I have forgotten, and then to go to try to relearn what I have forgotten. So, like you said, do you look at it just within the context of the Final Four, or do you look at it within the context of the entire NCAA tournament that year, or their entire college careers? I did not take into account NBA careers at all. I'm a college guy, so I stuck with college, and this was a lot of fun. I mean, I will and I don't know how much how much prep and time you guys put into this. There were a couple of names on your list that I thought were awesome, but I wouldn't have gotten there. It just wouldn't have occurred to me to think of these guys. I don't think. And then obviously there are a couple of guys that I have that didn't show up on these lists. But this was great because although, I guess I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage in that I don't do the NCAA tournament, right? ESPN does the entire regular season, and then CBS, and more recently CBS and TBS, they do the tournament. So there are two different analogies I give about this. I'll give you the clean one on this podcast. We get the pregnancy, they get the baby. You can probably imagine what the other one is, but I'll leave it at that. So, I mean, we're putting a lot of the work in, and then we kind of hand it off at the end to the wonderful folks at CBS and TBS. So by the time the Final Four is cooking, like I might be in Kansas City doing a Blue Jays game, or in years past in New York doing an ESPN game. And sad as it is, there have been years I haven't even watched the Final Four, which I'm not proud of saying, but I always try to, of course. But I thought this was great. And as I look down here, I printed off your list, obviously, so I can look at it. There were some great names here. And, what I love is if you guys did this draft again, you'd probably come up with totally different teams. And
it's quite possible. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you, what was the order? What were the rules here?
So one key thing, Dan, was I forgot to mention, just to remind our listeners, I did say before, was this is only in the 21st century. So again, it is the Final Four from 2000 up. So just so in case anyone's like, where's Lou Alcindor or whatever. So that's like, where's Bill Walton? Where's Bill Walton?
Bill Walton because of that.
So we're not complete idiots, friends. We had some parameters, but no, how did we do it? Well, who was first?
Matt picked first.
Matt was first pick, and then I was second, and then and they picked point guards, I think, right away. So I knew I could wait till the end to grab a point guard. That kind of strategy happened, but that was it. It just went around. You didn't have to stick with now it's the center round, now it's a power forward.
Right.
So randomly
but I like that you actually have the positions are valid on these teams. Like, it's not like you had 5 centers or 5 point guards or something like that. So it makes it a little bit easier to say, I think this team would beat that team when you put those 5 guys on the floor. So this was fun for me. I hope it was fun for you.
It was fun. You're done now? Okay, see you later.
Where do you want me to start?
Thank you for not working blue.
I mean, if you want to basically maybe just go pick a position and go who won that position at each one. If you can do that or something like that, that's fine with us.
Okay. Well, let me tell you a couple of great picks that I thought that I would not have come up with Sindarius Thornwell, and I will get. And
we knew that was coming.
Yeah, and firstly, it's as good a name as there's been in college basketball since 2000. So, I knew, I remembered South Carolina had made the Final Four. They did not make the national championship game, so he only had one quote game in the Final Four. But if you look at his run in the tournament that year, just like he was sensational. So I love that pick was on there. I will admit, Sandy, the Russell Westbrook pick kind of made me go twitch a little bit here. So I went back and he was in the Final Four, because that's my dog crying. Okay. I'm sorry. She wants to get out of the office.
Yeah. It's actually my wife calling you too, Dan.
Yeah. So the object here was winning. And no disrespect to a guy who's an unbelievable basketball player and incredibly talented and more athletic than all four of us put together times 10. But I just have vision in this fictional game of him going, 7 for 26 and that team losing by a bit. So Wayne Ellington, I had forgotten Wayne Ellington was the most outstanding player of the Final Four that year. So that one was interesting to me. And I will admit, Sandy, like when I look at Anthony Davis and Greg Oden, right away, my initial thought was, boy, we're going to have trouble beating that team.
Sure. Yeah.
There's a but coming later, but we're okay on that.
Okay. Fair enough.
And then it was the age old question: how do you tell Dante DiVincenzo apart from Ryan Arcidiacono of Villanova? Like they're like the same guy, but one became the other. So to me, they're almost interchangeable, and it doesn't matter to me which one, Mike, that you had on your team, because they're both.
Kudos to you for pronouncing both those names correctly on the first go, too.
You know what? I don't have many skills. I have about 4 of them, and I think 3 of them allow me to do my job. So, and one is pronunciations. One of the first things I did, are we allowed to stray off topic a little bit?
Oh, yeah. Well, definitely.
One of the first things I did, as my dog continues to whimper in the room. Can you hear that? That's she's 65 pounds of despair right now. And nobody remembers this, but select friends and family members, the 1994 Winter Olympics in Lillehammer, Norway. CTV had the Olympics, and that was their second. I think they did Barcelona too. As we all know, being Canadians, like CBC is the Olympic network, right? But CTV did them then, and they didn't have a stable of people. And for some reason, John Shannon hired me to be the number 2 hockey guy in Norway. And like literally nobody knows that I did this except my mom, I think. So, so Don Chevrier was the number 1 guy. Right. This was the Peter Forsberg, that goal. Remember that Sweden over Canada. So Don Chevrier called that game. He called all the Canada games. I called all the non-Canada games. So I did, like, my first game was Russia-Norway. And the day before that game, we go into the arena in Uvik in Norway, and we're trying to find out, hey, who's with the Russian team? Can we get a roster? Like, we got a game to do tomorrow. And they were suspicious. So 5 minutes before practice, they come out and they give us a sheet of paper that has 40 names on it. It doesn't have numbers. It doesn't have positions. It doesn't have which way they shoot. It's just got 40 names. And 40 guys are on the ice with no numbers on their jersey. And I'm like, well, what the hell good is this? I mean, how can I tell anything? But to get back to pronunciations, the first goal of the game the next day against Norway was scored by a guy named Vyacheslav Bezukladnikov. And this was before texting and all that. But I remember being on the phone with family back home and saying, man, like, we don't know if you pronounced that right, but it sounded like you pronounced that right. So I've always put a little, between hockey back in the day, college basketball has players from all over the world, obviously, as you guys know, and baseball. So I do try to make sure I do the pronunciations correctly because, their mom and dad might be watching. So
that's fantastic.
It's important.
I do marvel at the World Cup because of the wide swath of countries that are there. And I only once in a while, I heard an announcer this time say, a guy was coming in from, I can't remember which country, huge long last name. He said, "This is the kind of guy who makes my job challenging."
You know what else I remember about the Olympics? And it's funny how, our perspective is our perspective, but somebody came up to me at the Olympic Games. The U.S. goalie was Garth Snow, who went on to an NHL career. And somebody came up to me. I don't remember. I think he might have been from Finland. I'm not sure. And came and we were doing the USA Finland game, say, and a Finnish announcer came up to me. I guess he couldn't find American announcers or thought we were the American announcers. And he said, "Can I ask you a question?" Kind of in, Finnish English, I guess. And I said, "Sure." He said, "Is it snow or snow. And like to us, that's amusing, but that's how people feel about English, the way that we feel about names in other languages. And I'm always really, the funny part is when the worst person to ask is a coach. If I want to know how to mispronounce a name, I go to a college basketball coach. The only way to do it is go right to the kid himself.
Yeah.
Hang on. Sunday. It's okay. It's okay. Come here. Come here. She's so sad. The only way to do it is to go right to the kid himself. So can I throw a couple of guys that were not on the list that
I'm curious because I debated a few guys that didn't get picked too. So I'm curious to see who you would have thrown on there too.
Okay. So in my B level, they could have been there. Like Tyler Hansbrough just jumped out at me because he was the face of North Carolina.
I was very close to picking
right.
him.
And so he won in 2009. Sean May and Wayne. Well, May was 2005. Yeah. Ellington was with Hansbrough, right? Ellington was 2009.
Yeah.
But listen, Ellington was the most outstanding player. He was voted that. But Hansbrough was one that I thought about. But how do you take off? You're not taking off Greg Oden. I don't think he didn't win a championship. It depends if you put a value on winning a championship. The other kind of second level guys, the Baylor guards 2 years ago
had them too.
Phenomenal, right? Jared Butler and Davion Mitchell specifically. And there was also Maceo Teague. They were so good that if like only two of those three had been on the team, their numbers would have been off the charts. So, but all three of those guys were good. But those to me were misdemeanors, not felonies. So we're not going to.
Okay. I think Hansbrough, I was thinking about, but I needed a shooting guard and couldn't beat Ellington. I was like,
you needed a shooting guard. Okay.
And Hansbrough was not a good shooting guard.
Not a good shooting guard.
Not a good, no. I wanted
Very
Ellington.
good player.
Yeah.
Man with a golden arm. I needed him. I had I have Davis and Oden. I've got lots of size.
Yeah, you needed a shooter. No, you've got all three of you have great teams.
Yeah. If I hadn't gotten Derrick Rose, one of the Baylor kids was my next pick.
Right. Okay. So here's the ones I really wanted on the team. So it's the age old. Is 2000 part of the 21st century?
Sure.
We're going to say yes.
Yeah, we're going to say yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're pretty loose with the rules.
Yeah. I actually think it's not, but it doesn't matter.
Dan, that's not what the show is about.
Right.
It's not about centuries.
So Mateen Cleaves jumped out at me because he was that, and if you're a college basketball fan, you know what I mean. He was that ultimate winning college point guard.
Yeah.
You knew he wasn't going to have a huge NBA career. You could see that when he was at Michigan State. But if you wanted to win a game at the college level, Mateen Cleaves was one of those guys. So I liked him a lot. Here's a guy that I was really, he was just a monster the whole tournament. And that's Juan Dixon for Maryland in 2000.
Yeah, he was there. He was on there.
He was on my point guard list too. I think guard play is so important in that tournament that there's so many point guards who have had historic runs in that tournament. It's hard to just pick three,
But I think of him as a shooting guard. I think of Steve Blake. I don't know if you remember. To me, Steve Blake was the point guard. Dixon could handle, but I thought of him as a little bit more of a shooting guard. And I think I would have had him ahead of Thornwell, Ellington, or DiVincenzo, to be honest with you, at the shooting guard spot.
Yeah.
And then the last one, it's not that they're a package deal, and I don't know how to separate them. But when Virginia won the tournament, the last three games, they should have lost all three of them. Like the last three games were down to the final 10th of a second or overtime or whatever. And Ty Jerome and Kyle Guy, to me, were just phenomenal players. Kyle Guy, I think it was the game against Auburn in the Elite Eight, hit a three in the corner with like 6 seconds left to get them within 2. And then they go down or to get them within 1, they foul. Auburn goes down, makes 1 out of 2. It's a 2-point game. And then Guy gets fouled with like 0.2 of a second left. They're down 2, and he makes all 3 free throws to win the game. And I thought Jerome and Guy, again, you could kind of look at them and say, I don't know what the next level is like for them, but at the college level, they're winners. They were absolute winners. And Virginia played so slowly. Virginia played so slowly that it suppressed their numbers, right? Because they were a much slower possession per game kind of team. But I thought they were incredible college players. So Ty Jerome and Kyle Guy were 2 guys I was thinking about as well.
Jerome and Guy, though, also a wonderful 80s soul duo.
No, I didn't know that.
No, not true. Just completely sounds like something I'm going to get on my sexy Spotify playlist on Friday night. I'm going to get a Jerome and Guy hit.
But nobody could tell which one was Jerome and which one was Guy. It was very.
That was it. They were just back to back every cover, and you're like,
yeah. But there were great names on this list. Kemba Walker jumped out at me right away, and again, it depends how you're scoring at home, but they needed every ounce of Kemba Walker just to win the Big East tournament and even qualify for the NCAA tournament. So I gave some bonus points for that. Again, you said you play loose with the rules, so that's
no, that's fair.
No, your criteria is your own, Dan.
Okay, good. So yeah, Kemba Walker jumped out at me. I will admit to being a huge Emeka Okafor fan back in the day. I mean, UConn was just when they are again this year, it looks like, but UConn was Duke back then, right? UConn was Kentucky. That's who UConn was for many, many years. And Okafor was a big part of that. And a shout out to Mike for putting Luke Hancock on there. And I know Luke, he works.
Oh yeah.
He works for the ACC network, which is an ESPN regional network. So every year when we do the ACC tournament in Greensboro or Washington or Brooklyn, he's there covering the studio for the ACC network. And I don't know how to say this without it coming out worse than I mean it. Like, he is definitely the least recognizable guy on this list, but he was the most outstanding player of a Final Four. And other than the fact that there are violations against Louisville that had nothing to do with him, you can never take that away from him. But I think it's great that you put him on the list because he played out of his mind.
He did.
For those two games.
He did. He was 5 for 5 from 3 in that final game.
Yeah.
He went crazy. And I think he's the only guy to be named the most valuable player of the tournament who came off the bench too.
Oh, that's an interesting.
Or one of the few. Yeah. And he was not a starter, so that I have two guys who kind of didn't start. But anyway,
that's interesting. Yeah, so I loved seeing his name on the list, and the Corey Brewer one was interesting too because it made me go back and really look at that team because they had Joakim Noah and they had Al Horford, they had dudes. I mean those two Florida teams were phenomenal, and it's almost hard to remember who of the three was the best because from game to game to game it was a different guy.
And truthfully, that was when I was on a run of nicknames. I wanted the drunken dribbler, Corey Brewer. I did have a bit of a run on the nicknames. I wanted the man with the golden arm. I wanted the drunken dribbler. And then Westbrook I took because I couldn't get a nickname for Dixon. And that might have been a mistake. I was like, I know I've got Beastbrook here. I'm going to take a nickname again. I just fell in love with nicknames, Dan. It was my fault.
Now, we talked before about an oops. Mike, was it Caron? Did Caron Butler not play in the Final Four? Is that it?
He did not. I have the distinct memory of him playing that game against Maryland where he scored 32. He went absolutely crazy. And in my mind, I was sure it was a Final Four game. Turns out it was a Elite Eight game.
That's crazy that a player that good in an era that was that good for Connecticut. I would have bet anything that he played in a Final Four. It's amazing.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. This is why one of our claims on the show is that our research is somewhat shoddy. We need a Scott Carson.
What you have now is you only have 4 guys on the floor, Mike. It's like getting a red card.
That's right.
And as punishment, I have to play as the fifth.
Yeah. Oh boy! And your
the walk-on has to go in.
Hickory.
My Hickory T-shirt.
So I know which team I think I would pick to win. Are we at that point already?
I think that's fine. Yeah, if you feel like you got it, I think you go for it, Dan.
Okay. So I'll start with who I eliminated. I'll cut to the chase here. And I know he's not expecting to win, given what I heard before. But I'm going with T Mac to win this. Thing. I've got Kemba Walker as the best blend of talent and that it factor that he's got. Now, was he Russell Westbrook talent-wise? Not quite, but he was pretty damn good. And I think he had that Mateen Cleaves, Ty Jerome winner quality as well. I like Shane Battier's chances of shutting down whoever I want on the other two teams. And I haven't even said his name yet, but Carmelo.
Yeah, first pick. The first overall pick.
Yeah. Was that first overall? Yeah.
His first overall pick. Yeah.
Back in 2003, I did an inordinate number of Syracuse games. I was doing a lot of Big East then. Some of it was proximity. I could drive there. And what's funny is I don't even think they were in the top 25 until late January or early February, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Gary McNamara, Hakeem Warwick, Carmelo Anthony, they weren't even ranked until at least halfway through the season. But, you've got Carmelo Anthony that year. Like, who had a better year in whatever specific year we're talking about than Carmelo Anthony? Maybe Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
Maybe Greg Oden. And I know they're on the same team. That maybe Derrick Rose, but Carmelo was just a beast. And Emeka Okafor, to me, again, like Kemba Walker, just an incredible blend of talent and that it factor. So I think I'm going with Team Matt to win it.
That's totally fair. And one thing I will just, in my own again defense, I fell in love with nicknames, but I couldn't. I said to myself, do not pick anyone from Duke. So Battier, I let him go. I let him go.
Okay.
I was like, okay.
I think Kippen benefited from Sandy Amai's anti-Duke bias. Yes.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, there's no. There's like Jay Williams, the former Jason Williams. Like, he could have been on here. He was a
Sure
great
could.
player. But yeah. Now that you mention it, only one Duke player out of the 15. What do we got? Two Carolina.
Three, I think.
Three. What do I
May?
say?
You got May. You got
Ellington and May.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
May, yeah.
Yeah, but this is a judgment-free zone. I'm not judging anybody. I'm just
so hold on a second. If there's a winner, there's got to be a second and third. I mean, you've done the Olympics, the silver and the bronze. So I mean,
all right, give me a second here.
He's got 4 guys, Dan.
Yeah, he's got 4 guys. Yeah. All right, we'll give it.
Yeah, but you took Russell Westbrook. I think I deserve that. I deserve the L on that one.
Yeah, well, Mike played zone and it almost worked into the dying minutes, but eventually,
didn't hold up.
That's exactly it. Dan, we also we wanted to know that this is our Christmas episode. We were like December 25th, the Christmas episode, and here's Dan Schulman, who I don't think celebrates Christmas.
That's true.
And we were like, we have a December 18th episode. We could have put Dan on for the Hanukkah surprise.
That's fine. You can. You know what? Like you said, you kind of the criteria a little bit loose. Yeah. Hanukkah kind of moves around. It's a moving target.
That's true.
It is when it is, but you hold it whenever their family can get together and hold it. So we're actually celebrating it on the 26th on Boxing Day, because that's when everybody. We've got family all scattered all over Ontario, basically, between the college age, university age kids, and my sister lives outside of London. So we're doing it on the 26th. So you can just call it the holiday episode or whatever.
Thank you. We should be more sensitive and call it the holiday episode. Yeah. I'm going to set this tree on fire in the back and just fix it all up. Dan, this has been absolutely outstanding, and we don't want to put you on the spot too much, but we'd love to have you back in the spring for some baseball talk. I mean, we got to have you back for some baseball.
Yeah, let's do is everybody here a Blue Jay fan?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, let's do a deep dive on a Blue Jay topic.
Yeah, you know what, Dan? We should let you. You got a couple months now. You think of a deep dive Blue Jay draft you want us to do, and we'll you come up with the criteria, and we'll do the picket.
We can do that.
If you want, you can even join the draft too.
Okay. All right. We'll stay in touch and we'll get that done. We'll do it we can do a Victoria Day episode. I celebrate that.
Perfect. Thank you. Oh yes, of course. You're a big monarchist. I know that.
Everybody knows that about me. Yeah.
And that's your biggest thing. Yeah. Dan, thanks so much. And we'll see you soon, and happy holidays.
Thanks, guys. You too.
Thank you, Dan.
Well, it turns out he doesn't celebrate Christmas.
And as a result, neither are we.
Dan, it was so fantastic. What a great time this was in Christmas. We dug in on Christmas. We hope everyone had a good time. I mean, we wanted to give this as a Christmas present to ourselves or to the world, Matt. What do you say?
I think both. A little bit of both. Can't we share?
Yeah.
I think there's enough to go. There's enough love in this podcast to go around.
I think that's very true. There is enough love in this podcast.
Maybe even too much.
Maybe even
too much.
Maybe a little too much. Wipe some of that love off.
I guess if we all have a wish for Christmas, mine is that I wish the NHL would play on Christmas. That'd be fun to see some Christmas Day games. What are you guys thinking?
Yeah. I mean, Boxing Day is pretty good too. Like, do you want competition on Christmas Day? Because you're getting NFL games now, but sure.
NBA, you know what? Course.
Have your NHL games.
Yeah. Okay.
That's my gift to you,
Mike. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate that. Mike, what do you want on Christmas? What's your?
I just like on Christmas Day for Bernard King to come back and play a few minutes for the Knicks.
Amazing.
Christmas Day.
What is happening?
He's still good. Just 10 minutes off the bench on one knee.
Ladies and gentlemen, I can't believe this is happening. Bernard King has returned in 2022. Yes. Here we go.
And have Marv Albert call it. Yeah, that'd be great. That's all I want.
I feel like he'd go up, hit the shot, break both legs on the drop, and then that'd be the end of his everything. And, and Mike got his wish, though.
Yeah.
That's the important thing.
Be worth it.
Well, for those of you who celebrate, Merry Christmas. Otherwise, Happy Holidays, of course, to everybody who's listening. I'm Sandy Jobin Bevins.
Matt Gippen.
And Mike Shera.
And this has been This Day In sports. I was wondering how long that pause might go for.
I didn't know if you wanted me to come in there.
Have an awesome day, everybody.